The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, by Thomas Ligotti. Stringently considered, our only natural birthright is a right to die. Human beings, in general, have an unfalteringly good opinion of themselves and their condition in this world, and are steadfastly confident they are not a collection of self-conscious nothings. What we do, as a conscious species, is set markers for ourselves. Once we reach one marker, we advance to the next, as if we were playing a board game we think will never end, despite the fact that it will, like it or not. This is the tragedy. Consciousness has forced us into the paradoxical position of striving to be unself-conscious of what we are, hunks of spoiling flesh on disintegrating bones. The farther you progress toward a vision of our species without limiting conditions on your consciousness, the farther you drift away from what makes you a person among persons in the human community. We cannot live except as self-deceivers, who must lie to ourselves about ourselves, as well as about our unwinnable situation in this world. Immune to the blandishments of religions, countries, families, and everything else that puts both average and above-average citizens in the limelight, pessimists are sideliners in both history and the media. Without belief in gods or ghosts, unmotivated by a comprehensive delusion, they could never plant a bomb, plan a revolution, or shed blood for a cause. The major part of our species seems able to undergo any trauma without significantly re-examining its household mantras, including, "Everything happens for a reason," "The show must go on," "Accept the things you cannot change," and any other adage that gets people to keep their chins up. All civilizations become defunct. All species die out. There is even an expiration date on the universe itself. Human beings would certainly not be the first phenomenon to go belly up. Our self-removal from this planet would still be a magnificent move, a feat so luminous it would bedim the sun. What do we have to lose? No evil would attend our departure from this world, and the many evils we have known would go extinct along with us. The pessimist's credo, or one of them, is that non-existence never hurt anyone and existence hurts everyone. Although ourselves may be illusory creations of consciousness, our pain is nonetheless real. As a survival-happy species, our successes are calculated in the number of years we have extended our lives, with the reduction of suffering being only incidental to this aim. To stay alive under almost any circumstances is a sickness with us. Nothing could be more unhealthy than to watch one's health as a means of stalling death. We did not make ourselves, nor did we fashion a world that could not work without pain, and great pain at that, with a little pleasure, very little, to string us along, a world where all organisms are inexorably pushed by pain throughout their lives, to do that which will improve their chances to survive, and create more of themselves. The last of us could be the very best of us who ever roamed the earth, the great exemplars of a humanity we used to dream of becoming, before we got wise to the reality that we are just a mob, always in the market for new recruits. Neuroscientists and geneticists would have as much reason to head for the cliffs because little by little they have been finding that much of our thought and behavior is attributable to neural wiring and heredity rather than to personal control over the individuals we are, or think we are. It is not at all clear if the biological form of consciousness, as so far brought about by evolution on our planet, is a desirable form of experience, an actual good in itself. One way, out of countless others, to look at biological evolution on our planet is as a process that has created an expanding ocean of suffering and confusion where there previously was none. As not only the simple number of individual conscious subjects, but also the dimensionality of their phenomenal state spaces is continuously increasing, this ocean is also deepening. The cat is out of the bag. We are gene-copying biorobots, living out here on a lonely planet in a cold and empty physical universe. I get the message, and you had better believe I will adjust my behavior to it. Death would not be so bad if we could just disappear into it, without any irksome preliminaries. Emotions are the substrate for the illusion of being a somebody among somebodies, as well as for the substance we see, or think we see, in the world. Not knowing this ground-level truth of human existence is the equivalent of knowing nothing at all. Without meaning-charged emotions keeping your brain on the straight and narrow, you would lose your balance and fall into an abyss of lucidity. And for a conscious being, lucidity is a cocktail without ingredients, a crystal-clear concoction that will leave you hungover with reality. Nothing is either good or bad, desirable or undesirable, or anything else, except that it is made so by laboratories inside us, producing the emotions on which we live. And to live on our emotions is to live arbitrarily, inaccurately, imparting meaning to what has none of its own. One look at human existence is proof enough that our species will not be released from the stranglehold of emotionalism that anchors it to hallucinations. That may be no way to live, but to opt for depression would be to opt out of existence as we consciously know it. As a species, we do not shout into the sky, "The pleasures of this world are not enough for us." In fact, they are just enough to drive us on, like oxen pulling a cart full of our calves, which in their turn will put on the yoke. A misbegotten hatchling of consciousness, a birth defect of our species, imagination is often revered as a sign of vigor in our makeup. But it is really just a psychic overcompensation for our impotence as beings. We have no business being in this world. We move among living things, all those natural puppets with nothing in their heads. But our heads are in another place, a world apart where all the puppets exist, not in the midst of life but outside it. We are those puppets, those human puppets. We are crazed mimics of the natural prowling about for a peace that will never be ours. No reality to speak of, nobody here but us, puppets, contradictory beings, mutants who embody the contorted logic of a paradox. No immortality, ordinary folk and average mortals coming and going, can't stay long, got an appointment with non-existence. No alternative to consider, being alive was all right while it lasted, so they say. Doctors do not weep in the delivery room, or not often. They do not lower their heads and say, "The stopwatch has started." The infant may cry, if things went right. But time will dry its eyes, time will take care of it. Time will take care of everyone until there are none of us to take care of. Then all will be as it was before we put down roots where we do not belong. Being alive, decades of waking up on time, then trudging through another round of moods, sensations, thoughts, cravings, the complete gamut of agitations, and finally flopping into bed, to sweat in the pitch of dead sleep, or simmer in the phantasmagorias that molest our dreaming minds. Nature is interested in only two things, to survive and to reproduce one like itself. Anything you superimpose on that, all the cultural input, is responsible for the boredom of man. Your own death, or the death of your near and dear ones, is not something you can experience. What you actually experience is the void created by the disappearance of another individual, and the unsatisfied demand to maintain the continuity of your relationship with that person for a non-existent eternity. Every human activity is attack for killing time. Officially, there are no fates worse than death. Unofficially, there is a profusion of such fates. For some people, just living with the thought that they will die is a fate worse than death itself. As for procreation, no one in his right mind would say that it is the only activity devoid of a praiseworthy incentive. Those who reproduce, then, should not feel unfairly culled as the worst conspirators against the human race. Every one of us is culpable in keeping the conspiracy alive, which is all right with most people. While we scream and perish, history licks a finger and turns the page.